Hello there, Domainers. My name is Phil Milner, and welcome back to Film Domain. It's the Halloween season, and there really is no better way to celebrate than pop in some of your favorite horror movies and enjoy a good scare. Today, we are going to be taking a look at one of the most iconic horror franchises of all time. The Halloween franchise is just over 40 years old, and with two more movies planning to be released in the next couple of years, it would appear the franchise will last many more decades to come. I believe this is a good thing. And while there really is no arguing that the franchise has been bogged down with needless sequels and remakes, the success of the most recent installment in 2018 goes to show that the world still can't get enough Michael Myers. We would like to celebrate the franchise during this Halloween season by ranking the 11 movies that are currently part of it. Of course, it's always important to understand that these rankings are just an opinion. If you agree or disagree with these choices, please share your thoughts in the comments. Also, be prepared for some minor spoilers. And with all that out of the way, let's get started at number 11. Coming in last place, we have Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I think it's safe to say that most fans of the franchise were let down by this installment. Rob Zombie's first try at Halloween had already divided the fan base enough, but his sequel really pushed the franchise into a bizarre territory that I just didn't really enjoy or even find fitting to the Halloween universe or atmosphere. All that coupled with a sloppy story, unlikable characters, and a hillbilly-looking Michael Myers, I have no second guessing at putting this movie last. Coming in 10th place is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. I'm sure I'll get some blowback for what I'm about to say, but I really enjoy all of the Halloween movies from this point on. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're all good movies. Nah, there's definitely some trash in this franchise, and Halloween 5 is no exception. But my reasoning behind some of these lower ranking movies isn't because I didn't like them, but more the fact that some things just didn't really work for me. And oh boy, did the stupid looking mask tank this movie. The famous Michael Myers mask has seen several iterations over the last 40 years, but this is by far the worst. I just simply don't understand how the mask was even okayed by the producers. The mask, along with one of the weakest stories and some of the most annoying characters in the franchise, looking at you, Tina, just makes this movie less enjoyable than the others. Slicing its way into 9th place is Halloween Resurrection. I must have watched this movie 40 times when I got it on DVD for Christmas way back when. And that's not an exaggeration, that's the truth. I watched it twice a day for 2 weeks straight, and oh boy, I wish I could go back in time and talk to that kid. Yeah, now that I'm older, I can safely say this movie is pretty bad. Weak characters, a clunky Big Brother plotline, Busta Rhymes dropkicking Michael Myers out of a window, killing off Laurie Strode in one of the lamest ways possible, Busta Rhymes dropkicking Michael Myers out of a window, poor writing, and yeah, I'm gonna say it one more time. Busta Rhymes drop kicks Michael Myers out of a window, and I have nothing more to say about it. Stabbing into 8th place is, and I can already hear the angry typing in the comment section, Halloween 2018. I did not like this installment in the franchise. I would argue it does have the best quality and production value than any other Halloween movie, but this movie just didn't click for me. I felt the story was messy, the characters and their relationships with each other weren't really that believable, and after being promised that this movie would be a return to the feel of the original, I just don't think it accomplished that at all. There are some really great moments in this film for sure, but they are few and far between. I really enjoyed the Michael Myers murdering spree during the long take sequence a lot, as well as the twist with Dr. Sartain. But just about everything in between those two moments felt bare and uninspired. 7th place is going to be Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. The infamous Halloween movie that does not include Michael Myers is actually a pretty darn good movie, and anyone who says it's not is probably just angry that Michael Myers isn't in the movie outside of a TV commercial. I'm not saying that anger isn't justified, but if we view Halloween 3 as a standalone film, I think we can find a lot of things to appreciate about it. After all, the filmmakers were exploring the idea of turning Halloween into an anthology franchise when this movie was released. Of course, the poor audience reception made them change their mind to get back to Michael Myers, and I think that's a good thing. But that doesn't change the fact that Halloween 3 holds up well on its own. It has great kills, a fascinating story, and a really catchy Silver Shamrock jingle. 6th place is going to Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. After the fan outcry and disappointment of Halloween 3 threatened the legacy of the franchise, producers decided to give the audience what they wanted, and what they wanted was more Michael Myers. Halloween 4 brought Michael back, and while his return isn't perfect, I do think that Halloween 4 is one of the few sequels that actually captures the same kind of tone and atmosphere from the original movie. We have more kills in this sequel, and Michael has definitely begun his transformation from some ordinary guy to some killer with super strength. But I think the characters introduced in this movie are some of the best in the series. It's nice to have characters you actually care about in some of these horror movies, and I think most of the sequels suffer from having flat out unlikable characters. Of course, that doesn't mean much when it comes to horror movies. We all know most of these people in these franchises are simply a statistic for some kills. Also, because I did it with Part 5, I feel it's only fair to point out how stupid the mask is. Come on, guys. We need to be better. Killing its way to 5th place is Rob Zombie's Halloween, released in 2007. I mentioned earlier that Rob Zombie divided fans with his divisive installments. They are far more sexual and violent than any previous Halloween movies. A lot of fans took issue with him including that kind of material in the remake of the Pretty Tame original. I think those issues are fair and justified, and I should probably point out that I enjoy the theatrical version of this movie much more than I enjoyed the unrated version. With all that being said, I really did enjoy this take on Michael Myers. The dive into Michael's backstory, albeit a little tainted at times with all of that Rob Zombie-esque dialogue, was something new for the franchise that we hadn't really seen before. The first half of the movie is a very much enjoyable experience as we get to know Michael as a human being a little more. The second half of the movie is a more by-the-numbers remake, but I do want to give a shout out to the awesome ending of the movie, and it's a shame Rob Zombie kind of ruined it with this sequel. Number 4 is going to be Halloween H2O. After being absent from Halloween 3 through 6, Jamie Lee Curtis finally makes her return, and boy is it a great way to introduce Laurie Strode. I'm not a huge fan of the separate timeline this movie presents itself in, basically acting as a direct sequel to Halloween 2 and ignoring the fact that Halloween 3 through 6 even happened. Halloween 2018 did something similar by acting as a direct sequel to the original. I understand the decision as the original timeline was getting a little messy with Michael's cult story, but still, separate timelines don't make the franchise any less messier. Well, I'm not going to complain about it too much as this is a franchise that will eventually wind up with 4 separate timelines. Halloween H2O, which is a stupid name by the way, was released after Scream reinvented the entire genre. Shout out to Scream, you're the greatest horror movie ever made. Now, it would be understood that the characters in these movies would know the rules of the horror genre, they would be smarter and wittier with their choices, and have some really quippy dialogue. I think H2O plays it well by doing its best to throw Michael Myers into the Scream pop culture. Of course, Kevin Williamson's involvement probably had a lot to do with it. I thought H2O was a great way to finish out the franchise, but oh no, we can't be having that, can we? Michael always needs to come back. Let's talk about number 3. We have the original sequel, Halloween 2, claiming this spot. Halloween 2 is as near of a perfect sequel as you can get. Is it better than the original? Well, no, it isn't. But it does do an exceptional job of picking up the story literally seconds after the original had ended. I used to love Halloween 2 as my personal favorite of the franchise for many years. But as I got older, I started to really tell that it didn't age all that well. I wasn't a huge fan of Dick Warlock as Michael Myers in this one. I found his stiffness and movements incredibly distracting, and it took me away from the action the more I watched the franchise. I would even go further to say that, outside of Part 3 of course, this seems to be the most lifeless rendition of Michael in any movie of the franchise. I get it. I know he's supposed to be lifeless and pure evil and all that, but still, he doesn't have to be a robot. Whining aside, this movie is still awesome and an amazing follow-up to the original. I can see the revelation sinking in as you all begin to understand that there is only 2 movies left to rank, and one of them is Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. That's exactly what's coming in at number 2. I realize that I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one, but I've been defending Halloween 6 for way longer than I care to admit, and I'm willing to die on this rock. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, is the best Halloween sequel. We have the best mask in the entire franchise, outside of the original of course, some of the best kills in the entire franchise, and arguably the best representation of Michael Myers in the entire franchise. Michael seems so mean and ruthless in this movie. Even his movement gave off this kind of intensity, and if my choice here isn't controversial enough for you, I also prefer the theatrical cut to the culty producer's cut. I'm standing here. Feel free to throw things at me. Defending Halloween 6 is worth it. Of course, that would make the best movie in the Halloween franchise the OG Halloween released in 1978. Are you surprised? You really shouldn't be. Who knew that such a simple and low-budget movie would go on to spawn one of the most celebrated franchises of all time? John Carpenter is a master of the horror genre, and many of his classic trademarks were first recognized in Halloween. This is where everything began, and pop culture would forever be altered. The mask, the music, the classic and common horror cliches, it all begins here. One thing I love about this movie is that no matter how many times you watch it, you can always pick up on new details that you may have missed the first few times you gave it a go. Annie Brackett's entire stalking sequence and eventual death sequence is, quite possibly, some of the greatest horror segments ever constructed. Everything that I can say about this movie has already been said before. It is a classic. And that's enough of me talking. We want to read your thoughts on the franchise in the comments below. One of the greatest things about the horror genre and the Halloween franchise in particular is that it has something for everyone, and no two people who watch the franchise will have the same thoughts about it. Thanks for joining us for these rankings today, and look forward to more film-related content in the future, right here on Film Domain.